Berserks, did you see that World of Warships video I posted to you?
No, I forgot to go check on it. I mentioned it earlier.
Check that out.
Reactor online. Sensors
cool.
online. Weapons online.
Alright, here we go. Don't shoot each other
All
yet. Let's group up
systems
first.
nominal.
What sector you guys dropping
all
in?
enemies, no matter the
Golf
cost.
5? 4?
Each 3G3. Golf 3, Hotel 3.
10-4. Let's just meet at the Citadel. Golf 6-ish. That's roughly halfway. If I want to knock the trees over, they fly forward, hit the ground, and bounce and skid.
So I have stealth armor activated. Is it doing anything?
Well, I can't see you yet, so I don't know. I'll meet
I
you
can
in
see
Citadel
ya.
and tell you. Try shooting your guns. Do you build heat?
Yeah, you do.
Okay, then it's working. I just don't have line of sight on you, so I can't tell you if it's working, like I'm not locking you. I know it will. I've seen it in action. I just can't test your specific case for you. There you are. Yeah, I can't pick you up. I can visually see you, but I cannot pick you up. Or now I can. You're showing me.
It's not activated now. Now it is.
Yeah, you just disappeared from radar. I can see you visually, but and you're still
New target
jamming
acquired.
DeGoss to a certain extent. I'm having trouble holding my lock on him.
New target acquired.
So it looks like I have to have ECM activated in order for stealth armor to be activated.
Yes, ECM must be activated. I said don't shoot yet, Berserks.
That was a headshot. Your legs are soft.
Yes, they are on the Marauder. You would really leg check the Marauder. Alright, so...
I just did.
Yeah, you did. Anyways, as I was saying before we started, I was thinking about talking about weapon synergies and situational reactions. So, DeGoss, do you have anything in particular you'd like to go over? Questions or comments? Any concepts?
No.
Okay. So weapon synergies then. We'll talk about that real briefly, and I'll post up the video on YouTube for folks that missed it tonight. That way they can... Berserks, do not headshot me. That way they
I'm
can
just staring at you.
check in with it. Alright. You're creeping me out. Alright, I'm Berserk. Alright, so weapon synergies. He hasn't been on MechWar in a while, and I guess he's feeling his oats.
Right?
Anyways, certain weapons work really, really well with others. That's what we call synergistic relationships. So the large pulse laser and the ER medium laser, for example, for the inner sphere, are two synergistic weapons. They have similar optimal ranges, and they nest very well together. So if you have a mech that's got, say, dual large pulse and quad ER mediums, that's a pretty good build. You're not going to have a high alpha, but you're going to have decent range, and if you pair that with good speed, then you can get from point to point, take your shots of opportunity, do a lot of damage over the course of the match. Other people like to do the meta, which is the high alpha, smash, then rock back and cool off while reloading or recharging, in which case like heavy large lasers and some lesser lasers tend to work well together. I think it was the ER mediums have similar range with heavy larges. I'm not 100% sure because I don't use those very much. Another one is Gauss and PPC. They synergize well, give you long range with decent pinpoint. There's a lot of that kind of stuff that if you look at the ranges, if you look at the cycle times, certain weapons just pair really well. And so when you're building a mech, if you keep that in mind, you can build a mech that's extremely effective even if all the weapons aren't the same type. You don't necessarily have to boat one weapon type to have the best effect. Does that make sense?
Yep.
Now, on the same note, you got to be careful with ghost heat because sometimes weapons will cross over. So, like, if I remember correctly, when I was reading PGI's official ghost heat guide, they listed the AC-20 as a weapon that will ghost heat with any other weapon. So one AC-20 plus any other gun will automatically deal double heat from that AC-20. So certain things like that you have to be aware of too. Not all weapons are... Actually, I think now... Actually, let me take it back. I think they reworked it. I'll have to go back and look at this. But they reworked it a while back, and I think actually all the weapons can share ghost heat to a certain point. I would need to check that. I know certain ones definitely did. Actually, don't quote me on that. I need to look that up. But mainly you're looking at range, you're looking at cooldown, and if it's energy weapons, you're looking at burn duration to limit your face time. Alright, so that's pretty quick. Not a lot of discussion on that, I don't think. Berserk's clowning around. So let's talk about situational issues. So let's say you're fighting, and you guys sit tight for a second. Almost made it in the first try. So let's say you're fighting and you come rocking out the corner like this to fire, and you see a Kodiak or an Atlas or something right here. What would your first reaction be when you turn the corner?
Fire and back
For
up.
help?
Fire and back up. So your first thought is, I'm rocking forward. Holy smokes, there's an Atlas, let's fire, let's back up. Well, in that backing up moment, they've already alpha'd once, and maybe they get you a second time before you get behind cover, right? So you're hurting badly. And they've got enough speed, they're going to be around that corner in a moment and have you caught between two buildings. So what's your full thought process? And your initial reaction is fire back up. What would be your full thought process?
If they alpha, they're out of shots for a moment. So it's a good time to place your shot carefully.
Maybe. I mean, you'll probably just die. A lot of those mechs, even though they have high alphas and high heat, can go a second alpha and sometimes a third. So
Oh yeah, but you got like 2 to 3 seconds before they can fire again.
maybe, maybe not. Think about it. The medium lasers watch the AC-5s. That's not even a full 2 seconds. That's like a second.
Those are a second and a half.
Yeah, those are
So
like a second.
you're talking about Atlas. They normally pack SRMs, which have about 2.5 second recharge. AC-20 has about a 4-second reload.
Right, but then they're gonna shoot again and nail you. And if you're in a medium mech or a lightweight heavy, you're not really gonna be able to do enough damage when you peek that corner to be effective. You're gonna fire and you're gonna back up. It's better to use that time. If you're gonna back up, it's better to use that time to spin around and run for it. Cut out the back way and hook a left or a right and either go down the ramp or circle around the front of Golf 6 and try to flank around behind him when they cut in through the alleyway to look for you. Does that make sense? Your other option, depending on what your team is doing, is you could dive off the ledge and hug the wall. They can't... Whoop, I did not mean to fall off. They can't really get a good shot at you if you come off the ledge, depending on the angle. And if you hug the wall, they're going to have to get right up to the edge of the wall to shoot you. And like if I get right here and try to shoot somebody there, I'm only going to get them with a couple of my shots. The rest of them are all going to clip as I'm trying to hit them, especially since my mech is right side loaded like a lot of mechs are. So you could dive off, hug the wall, and run around the back. Then you wouldn't have to stop and waste your forward momentum and then back up and be exposed for 4 or 5 seconds. You would be exposed for maybe 1.5 seconds to 2 seconds as you go off the edge. So there's 2 different options you can do. What I would not do is I would not try to slug it out unless I was in an equal assault mech. If I was in an equal assault mech, depending on my health versus their health, I might go toe-to-toe and try to fight it out. But if I'm in a heavy or anything lighter than that, I'm not going to go toe-to-toe with an assault. I'm going to fire and back out, or I'm going to fire and dive off the edge and make a break for it. The other thing you can do, third option, is you dive off, hug the wall, and run down the ramp. Now, of course, if you do that, you're probably running into the rest of the group.
I got company.
What?
I got company. Grab back.
Destroyed.
Clean up the survivors. We've taken critical loss losses. We need you to pull through.
Enough of him legging me. Hey, studio, thanks. No worries about not joining. I completely understand what you mean.
Alright, well, those are good ideas, because I can't tell you how many times I've come around the corner and just like got caught flat-footed by a whole team.
I know what you mean. I'm one of those that's more of a strategic player. I've always enjoyed RTSs. I mean, first-person shooters, simulators like this, yeah, I enjoy those too. But I'm not a twitchy person. I mean, I can't just snap and fire like so many of these other people do. I'm more methodical. I'll aim, I'll hold it for a moment, and then boom, I'll fire. You know what I mean?
Yep.
But I'm not going to just snap fire, generally speaking. And that also translates into my thought processes when I move. I don't just move and fire as I'm running. I've already, before I turn the corner, I already know what the possible options are for me when I turn that corner, and I already know what I'm doing. I'm going to cut left and look left, because that's generally where most of the mechs are. If it's clear, I'm going to cut right and check right to make sure that there's nobody on the right side that I came out behind. If there's somebody on the left, I'm going to make a snap judgment based on the mech class. I'm going to lock them up. I'm probably going to shoot and rock back. And as I rock back, I'll get a sensor reading, and I'll know if it's something I want to rock back out to push or if I want to run away. Or if my team is pushing down here, for example, and they're pushing this direction toward the ramp, I may just dive off and join them and use this lift to break line of fire and then circle around and hit them with the rest of the team. It all depends on the situation. And it goes like that for anything. It's not just this one point. It could be anywhere. I mean, I've always got a plan A, a plan B, and a plan C. Unless I'm just tired and it's right before bed and I'm not really thinking. Generally speaking, I've got it mapped out where I know what I'm going to do in each situation. Because otherwise you get stuck. You'll see players like that. You'll be the guy that's fighting them, and you'll see them panic for a moment because they can't figure out where they want to go, what they want to do. They'll kind of move one way, then move the next, and then they'll pick a spot and they'll run for it. But in that time, you've shredded them. And a lot of people in MechWarrior they play like that. They run around the corner, it's like, oh shoot, there they are, and then they get killed, and then they go to the forums and complain that time to kill is too low. But the problem is that they made a bad judgment decision when they moved out in the open. That is a cool paint scheme, by the way.
Oh, thanks.
Is that the Buccaneer?
No, yeah, it is.
As I was saying, studio, welcome to the stream. Sorry to hear you're feeling poorly, but I understand. Don't worry about missing.
Yep,
and
use the skull and
thank you for the well
crossbones.
wishes. It is feeling a little better. And
I guess it kind of has one as part of the pattern.
What's part of the pattern?
The skull and crossbones.
Oh yeah, I'm trying to look behind you. That is cool. Oh yeah, you got several skull and crossbones on there. That's cool. I like
the Legend Killer has like a big mouth with a big tongue, and it's pink and purple. I'm like, okay, that's not gonna work for me.
The Buccaneer scheme is a hit or miss kind of a paint scheme. I guess it depends on whoever the art lead was that designed it. On certain mechs, it looks amazing. Like on your mech right now, it looks good. On others, it looks like they didn't try. Like it was a, who cares kind of day. Let's just dump some paint on the mech. You know what I mean?
Yeah, some of them don't look as good. It looks really good on the Awesome.
I haven't checked the Awesome in a while. I know my favorite is the Quick Draw. Have you seen it with Buccaneer?
No, I haven't.
It has 6 shooters on each hip.
Cool.
It's got 6 shooters, and it has the words "Your Move, Creep" tattooed on the forearm.
Yeah, on the Awesome, it says wide load on the ass.
That's awesome. No pun intended. But yeah, the early paint schemes, I think they put more effort in them because there weren't any decals. And I was like, well, why put all the effort into the paint scheme? Why not just give them a base paint and let them put the decals on it?
Alright.
But certain mechs that were made before decals, I think the Rifleman came out before them, they just look good in certain paint schemes. And then the ones that came out after decals, it's just like, they quit trying. Anyways, but all that to say, so that's for peeking corners. And my general rule of thumb for peeking corners is peek the corner, but don't peek at full speed. I mean, you're going to rock up. I like to zoom all the way in before I peek. That way I get a full vision view. I don't use advanced zoom if I have it. I just zoom in manually with the Z key or with the middle mouse wheel. And then I peek the corner slowly. That way if there's something there I don't want to tangle with, I can decelerate to stop almost immediately and throttle back. And then I do a quick spin, I throttle up, and I take off. A lot of people don't value the hard brake, and I can't remember the acceleration one. It's like kinetic something. I can't remember. But basically, it's like
kinetic burst.
Do what?
Kinetic burst.
Yeah, something like that. I think that's it. But the hard brake, of course, lets you stop faster, and the burst lets you speed up faster. A lot of people consider them junk nodes, but I consider them very valuable for my style of gameplay because I do a lot of peaking. So being able to stop and speed up is very critical. It's, to me, as important, if not more important, than having a high top speed. Because high top speed is great, but you know the saying, who cares how fast you can go if you can't get from 0 to 60 in 5 seconds? You know what I mean? So that's how I look at it. Anyhow, but so I tend to build mechs that have a quick XL decel rate, good top speed. I generally shoot for medium top speed. I don't necessarily go for the fastest, unless it's a medium, then I generally do. But the whole point is I can rock out, peak, rock back, or rock out, peak, and then just throttle up the rest of the way and take off if I have to. Now for peaking over hills, it's the same concept. You're just peaking over to the cockpit can see and then rocking back. But for hills, there is an important difference. Let's see. I think there's a hill back here we can use. Follow me over here real quick. You probably already know this, and I'll put this in the video for anybody who missed, but just in case, it might help you as well. This is something I learned pretty early on. The Arbor Day Foundation is hitting me right now.
Right? We just planted those.
Battle mechs should not roll like minivans, they should walk. You can't get up either, can you? You know, if our mechs walked, we would get up that. But since they roll, they don't. This hill will work. It's not optimal for demonstration, but it'll work to run across. So, let's say I'm gonna peek. Where'd you go?
I don't know. I'm still trying to get up there.
If you go to the left, all the way down toward the bridge, there's a little rise you can climb up, and then you can walk back on the shelf.
Right.
There, you found it.
Yeah.
Let's come over here real quick. So let's say I'm going to peek over this hill. A lot of people will come right up like this, they'll walk to the top, they'll fire, and then they'll rock right back down. That's a bad mistake. Do you know why?
Because you're in full view while you're trying to change directions.
Exactly. And do you know the other reason?
What's up?
Lock-on missiles, LRMs, and streaks, and ATMs. So you rock up, you fire, somebody locks you who has a quick lock, you're rocking back, and you're watching the missiles come, and you're like, haha, I broke the lock. But because the missiles stay on the same course, they hit you anyways. Does that make sense?
Yep.
So if I rock up like this, I'm vulnerable more so than I need to be. But let's say I want to peek over this hill. What I'm going to do is I'm going to rock up at an angle like this. I'm going to fire, and I'm going to rock back. Now, all I can get hit by is direct weapons, because as I'm backing up, the hill's blocking me from the missiles are coming, but I break the lock, and they swoop past right in front of me. They don't actually hit me. Also, because I'm coming up at an angle, I'm not stopping at a dead stop in front of them and then reversing straight backwards, making it even easier. I'm going sideways. I've got 2 planes of motion instead of 1 plane of motion. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Or I guess instead of plane, I should say axis. I have 2 axis of motion versus 1 axis of motion. And so I've doubled the difficulty that they have in actually striking my mech. The only vulnerable moment, I mean, I'm vulnerable the whole time I'm exposed, but the most vulnerable moment is when I come to a complete stop before I come back down the hill. But whereas instead of rocking up, shooting, and rocking back, where they can just keep hitting my CT, now I'm going sideways, and not only can I spread damage, but I'm also disappearing a little more quickly. Because let's say certain parts of the hill, like this side right here, might have additional cover you can use, like this rock. So if I'm going to come out to the left of the rock over by you, I'm going to peek the hill. I'm going to do it at an angle. I'd peek out, I fire, and I peek back. Now the rock hit me twice as fast as if I would have walked back down the hill. So that protects me from direct fire as well. So now that makes me really, really hard to hit. If you watch any of the other videos I posted of me fighting, you'll notice I use that a lot. That is my bread and butter gameplay. Rock out, boom, eat it, and then I rock back. And somebody's hurting with 40, 50 points of damage, and they're sitting there going, shoot, that guy's really aggravating me. I've also, by doing that, secured a couple of things. One, I got a hit and run bonus, which is a really nice XP and C-Bills reward. If they're backs to me, I get a flanking bonus. And each time I rock out to fire, I just repeat those bonuses. So I'm building my mission rewards at the end. You don't have to have high damage and high kills to earn good C-Bills and XP. You can have low damage and low kills even. But if you're effective with your shot placement, you're taking out the components and you're getting those hit and runs, or those flankings, those protected, those assists, etc. You're really padding your earnings at the end of the match. So all in one, that peaking method is really, really potent for making sure that A, you're protecting your own mech, B, you're taking advantage of the earning rewards, and of course also there's the lock-on, so C, you're denying infotech. What's the word I'm trying to think of? Not infotech, it's I guess it's information. I was trying to use the fancy word MWO and PGI were using previously, but I can't remember what they were calling it, so I'll just go with information. You're welcome, Studio. I think it is helpful to know. A lot of people, it's a common sense thing, but a lot of people don't think about it because you're used to thinking in single directions of motion. And people, once they see it, it's like, oh yeah, it's like, light bulb. Oh yeah, I see that. But even when I started playing, was doing the straight up, straight back initially. And then when I saw somebody else angling, I was like, oh, that's smart. I need to do that. And it's just something, some people think of and some don't. But once you see it, it sticks. And it's something that you can use repeatedly. Alright, let's see. Those are probably the two biggest things, are rounding corners and peeking in this game. Let's see. What else can we talk about for situational? I guess there's always the issue of, do I shoot or not shoot when you're overheated? Trying to figure out if you can hit them or not. That comes down to your own personal decision. Whether or not you think you can smoke that mech, or you have enough leeway to make that shot without blowing yourself up. I personally don't like to override, and a lot of the time I won't even equip it. What I generally do is I'll turn it on, and I'll just manage my heat to keep it below 100%, and then if I accidentally forget and it goes over, it's usually just 1 or 2% that it peaks. It doesn't really go over by much. I do that more to allow me to continue to move so that I don't shut down. Hang on a sec, let me change my mic here. I'm going to talk about light mechs here for a second. You can keep the mech you have, or you can go with a light mech if you want. It's up to you.
Light mech.
Which one to use? Let's get ECM. That'll make it hard for you to target me. I think this one's kitted out. I'll run that one. I'm going to kick Berserk since he's got company. I don't know when he'll be back. Plus, he kept trying to leg me. I know he's my little brother and he hasn't been on in a while, but golly, stop legging me.
Right.
Such a ham.
Yeah, I thought he was going to shoot me when he came.
He was
over my head.
He was making me antsy. I was sitting there going, is he going to headshot me or is he going to get me? He kept pegging me in the legs like, doggone it, sit down. This will be a good map for what I want to demonstrate with lights as well. So what we're going to get into first is zigzagging. It seems pretty easy, zigzag with light mech to throw off shots, but it's actually harder than you think. The reason for that is that humans are creatures of habit. We tend to exhibit patterns unconsciously, and we react in ways that are predictable, even when we think we're being unpredictable. I don't know if you've ever... There's a TV show, actually, that made really, really good points on this in one of the episodes. I don't know if you've ever heard of it. It's called Numbers. It's about a mathematician that solves crimes using math. But his whole point was that people are predictable, so he would build mathematical models to predict the crimes and to predict where the evidence for those crimes would be.
Sensors
It's a really
online.
cool series on Netflix if you haven't seen it. I highly recommend it.
All
Plug aside,
systems nominal.
the same thing applies to MechWarrior Online. Go ahead, Degas. I'm
All
sorry.
enemies,
I was just
no matter
saying
the
that.
cost.
Do what? I didn't hear that time either. Okay.
Hear me?
Your mic got really quiet for a second. I was having trouble understanding what you were saying.
Oh, okay. I was just saying I remember the show.
Oh, yeah. Glad you enjoyed it too, Studio. That was fun. So the same concept, I use that because some people are pretty familiar with it, and they'll remember what I'm talking about by referencing that show. The same concept applies to movement behaviors in MechWarrior Online. Whether it's a heavier assault, trying to go around a building or around a corridor, or you can kind of make an educated guess as where they'll show up, or like mech trying to evade, you have to be constantly thinking about how are you going to evade other people. Now, Studio, who's watching the stream, has watched me play too much. I say that because when we had our training night the other night, he was accurately predicting where I was going to appear, and he was actually outguessing me. I was really impressed. But he's watched me enough to know, hey, Berserk's is back. Your company good?
Yep.
Okay, excellent. So he's watched me enough to know to make predictions about my behavior, but you don't have that luxury necessarily with most people that you meet in game. So what you're going to do... Sorry, Berserk, we booted you because we didn't know how long you were going to be.
I had a lobby invite, but it's not there anymore. Oh, y'all just employed, that's why.
I like the Osiris, that's snazzy lady. It's like a cross between a raven and a locust, kind of sort
Uh-huh.
Okay, so with light mechs, what a lot of people do is they'll come peel it up, haha, boom, I shot you, I'm running away, haha, they run off into the buildings like this. But they're not thinking about whether they think about getting to cover and hiding, but they don't think about the next steps. So they run away, they get into cover, break line of sight, and what happens next? They think, I'll circle around, using the buildings as cover, and they never really check their six. They just run, and they're checking here and there, and they're not really looking behind or trying to keep an eye on the mech they originally shot. They just look back around thinking it's going to be where they had shot it or close to that position. And the guy that got shot oftentimes chases the mech off, and either will go chasing it all the way around and fall into that trap where the guy pops out behind him, or he'll just shrug it off and go trudging after the group, only have the light mech pop up behind him again. What I do is when somebody does that to me, I turn and I shoot him and chase him off, and then I generally move with the group, but I keep an eye on my back trail because that light mech I know is going to pop out. If he went and he flanked around into the buildings, he's not going back to his buddy. He's going to pop out here and try to come up behind me again. He's predictable. He's not thinking about maybe I should run into the buildings and wait a moment and then come out. He's running in, he's making a circle, he's coming back. People are impatient. And so if you sit there and you wait for a moment, he'll pop out here thinking he's being all sneaky. He'll rock out, he'll freeze for a minute because he hasn't thought, what am I going to do if he's looking at me? And you'll peg him in the CT. So when you're doing that to a bigger mech with your light mech, what I recommend is when you run off, and what you do instead is instead of circling around to get behind him, instead you peek yourself. You pop up, you shoot at him, and you rock back behind cover, you make a show of heading like you're going back towards your buddies. And then you take a longer route and you circle around with a longer route. Now he thinks, oh, he's not doing the flank. Now he's rejoining his buds or whatever. In reality, all you did was bait him. And now you've circled around. It takes you maybe twice as long to make the flank, but you're a light mech. So instead of maybe 10 seconds, it takes you maybe 20 seconds. It's still plenty of time for you to get around behind him because he's got to start moving, catch up with his slower mech. And you're still coming out close to where he was, and you're still getting that nice flank on the second time. I just popped out. I'm sitting right behind you now. Turn all the way around. There I am. Did you see me come around?
No.
Exactly. And so what you do to that red mech is you confuse him. And you pop out behind him, and now he doesn't know what's going on. He thinks there's another light. He turns around and it's you, and he's sitting there scratching his head, going, how'd he get from there to there? And he's thinking hacks. The other thing with light mechs that I want to demonstrate is evasion. This is something that most light pilots are guilty of. The good ones fall into it as well. And that is, let me knock some trees out real quick so you can see it a little more effectively. There's two issues with evasion. Two things I have with evasion that are beefs of mine that aggravate me, that I notice people doing very frequently. Just knock some trees out of the way so you have a better line of sight. That should be good. Alright, so I'm going to come from this direction over here. Knock the light poles out of the way because I hate the city. Alright, here we go. So a lot of people will throttle up, and they'll come running in, and they'll do this number. That's a really bad idea. Do you know why?
No, keep exposing your back.
Well, not only are you exposing your back, but did you notice there was a pattern to when I turned left and turned right?
Yeah.
I'm not really randomizing. I'm thinking I'm zigzagging and making it hard to hit, but I'm being predictable. After you miss,
they just wait for the apex of your zig or your zag and shoot you then.
Exactly. After you've shot and missed a couple times because I'm jerking left and right, you'll suddenly notice I'm doing it on a pattern, and you'll just hold to that pattern and wait, and when I hit the edge of that pattern, you'll hit me. I've done that to people. I've had light mechs going, oh, Locust is the most satisfying. They shoot you, they turn, they rip off, and they're laughing as they run away, and all of a sudden I nail them in the back, and they're piling up, and they're accusing me of using an aimbot. But the problem was they were making a predictable pattern as they fled. They were not changing up. What I do when I flee, and I fall into the pattern trap because I'm a human as well, and everybody does it, but I try to do this when I run. So if I'm running, I try to do this. And generally, I'll go it may take me longer to get from point A to point B. I'm going in the same direction, so to speak. But what I'm doing is I'm changing directions for just a brief moment in different directions quickly, which they see that and their brain's trying to fit it to a pattern. Your brain's always trying to fit things in a pattern. That's why you have camouflage and all these other things that are designed to disrupt patterns. So if I'm running flat out and I'm zigzagging, I'll do this for a moment to get them thinking of something, and then I start doing this number, where I'm juking my mech in place for a second before moving in one direction. And I don't even try to alternate directions. Sometimes it'll be the same direction again. And it's all just to get them to be confused, to avoid settling into a pattern where they can hit me. Now, obviously, all they got to do is just keep raking my legs. If they just keep raking the legs, they will get my mech. They will leg it, and they will stop me. But they're going to be so aggravated trying to hit me that they're not going to be thinking as well. Again, good pilots, this doesn't work quite as well against because they recover faster and they start aiming for the legs. But a lot of people will get frustrated and they'll miss their shots and you can get away. The second thing that bugs me with light mech pilots when they try to run away is they'll do this. I'm going to turn around and run straight at you here. Alright, so they'll start running and they'll do this number, where they're like zigzagging and they're moving, and I've got my arms locked. There we go. I have my arms locked, so I wasn't doing it quite as much for the video. Let me unlock the arms and try again. Here we go. So they'll do this number right here, where they're like moving their head like crazy and all this stuff while they're trying to run in one direction. They think they're actually spreading damage, but they're not. The reason being is, yeah, you can zigzag your torso a lot, but if you think about it, most mechs, their torso moves slower than their arms. Like right now, I'm moving as fast as my torso will let me spin it at this moment.
That's every mech.
Well, it's every mech, you're right. I shouldn't have said most, I should have said all mechs. Right now, this is as fast as my torso can move side to side. Let me release arm lock. Suddenly, it's moving faster. It's not that the torso sped up, it's that the camera has sped up to track the arms. Even though my arms can't move side to side, they only move up and down, the camera still moves side to side. So you're not actually torso twisting like you think you are. You're not actually spreading damage like you think you are. What you're doing is you're blinding yourself. And I'm watching people run into objects because they can't see where they're going because their camera's snapping side to side too fast.
We saw somebody do that the other night.
Exactly. Yeah. That match we were watching him and what did he have? A Panther, I think.
Yeah, or something. Yeah, some light mech. And he was rotating his torso so fast you couldn't see where he's going. He kept.
I thought it was a cheetah. I don't remember.
Might have been. I don't remember. It was a Panther, cheetah, wolfhound, something like one of those mechs with that kind of a profile. He was getting his butt kicked by a commando or whatever it was that was shooting at him. I don't remember now. And I tried to tell him to lock his torso and to quit shaking his cockpit that much, and he got aggravated with me, and I just let off. But the thing was, he wasn't really spreading damage. That's why he kept getting CT'd. His mech torso still spun at the same speed, and the guy could still line up his shots. His camera was zigzagging, so he was creating the illusion that he was twisting a lot. But and my camera would be zigzagging more if I'd picked a mech that the arms went left and right. But in effect, what he was really doing was he was just fooling himself. His torso wasn't twisting as much as he thought, for the simple reason that as soon as he got his mech looking in one direction, he snapped it back in the other. So his camera's moving faster than the torso's not keeping up. So as his camera's hitting one side and he's starting it back, the torso is only slightly angled in that direction. Now it's got to turn back in the other direction, and it only gets slightly angled for it has to turn back again. So the torso stays reasonably straight. I mean, it's twisting, but it's not twisting a lot. whereas the camera's flying around. So if he were to lock his torso, he'd get a more accurate sense of where his torso is in relation to his camera, and then he would be able to spread damage more effectively. In this mech, actually, I'm doing it right now. Yeah, it does make a slight difference without arm lock, but really it would be better if I had a mech that the arms are free. This was a bad mech to choose to demonstrate this, but you understand the concept that I'm trying to put out there.
Yep.
One thing to keep in mind though is that when people start filling their arms a lot like that, it actually makes their arms more likely to take shots from the side. So some people will start doing that just to try to catch shots with their arms. The guy that we saw the other night was just an nincompoop and was doing it because he thought he was spinning really fast.
Yeah, he didn't know what he was doing.
Spreading damage.
It'll depend on the mech. Like certain mechs that have arms
the Centurion.
Yeah, the Centurion with his
really
larger shield arm can do that. Yeah.
Yeah, if you're running parallel or perpendicular to an enemy shooting at you, and you're trying not to take too much damage, you can try to.
You cut out berserks.
I'm sorry, you can take some shots.
Yeah, if your mech has good shield arms that can get the elevation that you need or whatever, yeah, you can use that tactic to help shield. But generally speaking, 90% of the people that are doing it are just doing it because they think they're shielding and they're not really shielding as effectively as they believe they are. So what I like to do is I like to do this when I'm running away. I'm going to come around the building here and demonstrate both concepts now in my practice, what I do. So if I'm trying to run, let's say I'm running across this field. First of all, what I'll do is this. I'll move my torso and I'll move my legs independently. It's hard to do two things at once. But generally speaking, I'll shake my torso and I'll hit my keys back and forth like I demonstrated earlier. And I'll generally try to make the same directional path. Let's say I want to go through the buildings to the right. Well, I might zig to the left, make a thing I'm going left, then I'll cut right hard, and I'll change my direction several times while moving and shaking my mouse. But again, you don't want to shake your mouse with the same frequency because they can wait for that frequency and then peg you where they want you. So you got to try to break up your mouse shake, your camera. Doggone it! You want to try to break up your torso shake just like you break up your mech zigzagging, which can be really difficult. I don't know if you've ever done the experiment where you move your feet in one direction and try to move your arms the other direction. It doesn't really work that well. It's the same thing. It's hard to do. You tend to focus on one, then focus on the other. But so long as you're at least alternating, it makes it that much harder for them to hit you consistently in the same component. Then it can buy you a few extra precious seconds of TTK. Of course, the best strategy is just not to get in that situation at all and to use the cover effectively and to avoid getting caught in the open. But unfortunately, there are times when you will get caught. Any questions on that?
Nope.
All right, any other concepts or anything you want to discuss or go over?
No.
Okay.
Got any more concepts you want to work on or show me?
I'm trying to think of some other things maybe. Those are the big items I think for situational. Peeking over hills, rocking out of cover, zigzagging in light mechs, torso twisting versus camera twisting. Let's see. We went over weapon synergies briefly. Berserks, any thoughts or comments? Anything you'd like to add?
No, I was gone for a good chunk of it.
10-4. Studio, you're watching in. Anything you want me to go over? I'll wait a minute or two for you to reply because I know there's a stream delay. Mediums, a lot of the stuff that we talk about with lights can apply toward mediums as well because of their lighter armor and faster speeds, whereas the peaking and rocking apply to heavy mech. I would say on components, generally speaking, you want to shoot CT if you don't have a target overlay because most people shoot center torso anyways. So your best chance of dealing the most effective damage is going to be a random CT shot if you don't have the targeting overlay up. If you do have a good targeting on them, then I would pick the weakest part of their mech and I would shoot the weakest part of their mech rather than the CT because that'll help the most, contribute the most toward crippling them or killing them in the long run. And Studio says he's good, nothing to add. Alright, well with that, I think we'll call it good for tonight. Last chance, anything you guys want to go over?
Nope.
Okay, in that case, Degalis, you want to fight it out?
Sure.
Alright. If I can find you, where'd you go? Oh, he saw me. Direction, pop out when he doesn't expect. Ooh, I missed. Direction. Pop out when he doesn't expect.
Target destroyed.
Oh, I do remember. Shoot, I do remember one other thing, but we can talk about it. I don't have to demonstrate it. There's places on the map where you can go underwater with light mechs, especially the shorter ones like the Locust and the Commando.
Yeah, we've looked at that one on this map before.
We've looked at that on this map before, over by the boat, but also Crimson Strait. That would be a good map to demonstrate. I might do that next time. There's places in Crimson Strait where there's holes you can disappear in. They removed a lot of them, but I think there's still one or two. And then also you can go hide out by the boundaries if you ever needed to. Like let's say it's something like scouting, and you got to hide for the last minute or whatever for the dropship comes. You can go sit out in the water close to the border of the map. Nobody's going to find you out there. But then also the coolest thing about Crimson is you have those ships, and one of them. The stern of the boat peeks out past the boundary point, so if you were to run around the stern, you'd be out of bounds. Most mechs cannot make it around the stern without blowing up. They can't get around in 10 seconds. The Locust and the Commando can. I don't know about all the other mechs. I'm assuming the Mistlings can. Anything that has comparable speeds, but there's a couple of light mechs that can get all the way around the stern and back with like 1 second to spare. You have to do it perfectly. So if you're ever getting chased in something, say like scouting, you can run out of bounds, and of course they're going to chase you a short distance and turn back and say, oh, he died. But then you can cut around the stern and run back down the other side of the boat, the port side of the boat, come back into the harbor and be okay. And they'll be sitting there going, what happened to them? And you can get a good running start with the whole boat between you and them. You can be running toward the island with several seconds head start, which is quite a bit for a fast mech like the Locust or the Mistlings. And that's all more situational regarding water and light mechs, but again, I don't think we need to make a video for that. What I'll do is I'll probably roll it into the next training night. Alright, you guys want to run some